What is going on, my fellow nerds? OperatorOtter here. It's a new season, it's a new day, new builds. Alright, so first and foremost, I want to thank those who were able to come into my stream and support me for my world's first race. I got 9th place for all of Necros in the world to get to level 100. I was 31st place in the world total. Feels great. It was only a duo. I didn't have a full party, but hey, still got a good place. I'll take it. W in my book. Alright, new season, new build. What's going on? Alright, so the standard Bone Spear build that we were running preseason, I want you to imagine it like a piece of Legos and you said build a house. And you could, theoretically, as a house, put like 4 Legos together and put like a flat piece on top. And then that's it. That's the house. Done, right? And you could beautify it into making this super gorgeous mansion and stuff like that. But if you just want a house, you can do that. So at its core, the base Bone Spear build isn't exactly difficult to put together, and it functions really well pretty much throughout the entire game. This build, unfortunately, is more like a car, where you could label the engine as the most important part, but it's not going anywhere unless you have a transmission, or tires, or a chassis, or a steering wheel. It's not really going to go anywhere and do you much good. So that's kind of how this build is. Every piece in this build is very, very important, and there's a lot of synergy going on. But if I said there's an engine, what's the most important part? What is the new engine to this Season 1 Bone Spear build? Well,
it's time for the moment you've been waiting for. Preparing the
Lidless Wall. Yes, the new engine is Lidless Wall. The golden rule of Diablo is that procs can't proc procs. And what that means is that if something else procs an effect, that effect that it procs cannot proc another effect. You have to be the source of damage in order for something to proc. That's been the golden rule of Diablo since Diablo 1, Diablo 2, Diablo 3. That's been the golden rule. Okay, your procs can't proc procs. That's been a golden rule in all of Diablo history. So when I saw this, I was like, well, that's sort of cool, but we're not going to benefit off of the Bone Storm, so there's no real reason to even like do that. And then someone in my stream mentioned like it's actually doing something. I was like, I guess I'll try that in Season 1. I got it. I tested it. It does it. So let's talk about the synergies about what Lidless Wall is doing and discuss what Lidless Wall does in essence. First off, just the stats on the main weapon are nuts. 15% attack speed, damage to distant enemies, energy resource on hit, maximum essence. That's a strong shield. That's a very, very good shield. But then we have this effect, right? While you have an active Bone Storm, hitting an unaffected enemy has a 5 to 25% chance to spawn an additional storm at their location. Each of your active sacrifice bonuses increase the chance by 25% and the total additional Bone Storms you can have by +1. Okay, what does that mean? Long story short, it means that you have an 80 to 100% chance on a lucky hit that you're going to spawn a Bone Storm, of which you can have a maximum of 4. Because we have 3 sacrifices. So right now, this one is a 90 because I have 15 plus 75, but it's working off of lucky hit chance. If this was base Bone Spear, let's imagine I didn't have lucky hit chance anywhere on my gear. The base would be 50. It would be 90% of 50%, which would be 45%. So I have a 45% chance that on hit, I'm going to spawn this Bone Spear. With this one, it's 54% because of the fact that I have 60% in my gear, but I digress. Okay, so these Bone Storms, when they spawn, when you hit an enemy and they spawn on the enemy, and you'll see that in the video later, but when these things spawn, they give you all of the effects that your regular Bone Storm does. Your Bone Storm gives you 15% damage reduction and 20% crit hit chance. Now, these don't stack, but what can happen is, let's say that your main Bone Storm falls off, and one of these Bone Storms is still active. Even though the Bone Storm is not on you and some Bone Storm is off in Zimbabwe doing its job, you're still getting the benefit of having the damage reduction and the crit hit chance. So that's really good. The other part that we have synergy here is the barrier generation. Every single time Bone Storm deals damage, we gain a barrier equal to 5% of our base life. Well, remember, base life. So we have 11,000 life here, but really it's about 7,000 life. I'm not running any life in my gear simply because of this, right? Because it's not going to boost my barrier, so there's no reason to really run life because my life isn't going anywhere during the build. You'll see that. Like, my life doesn't really drop all that much, and so I don't really need it. So I run other things. But what happens is let's say we have 3 of these Bone Storms out and my Bone Storm. That means every single time they hit an enemy, I'm getting 20% of my shield. Well, if I'm facing 5 enemies and all 4 of these Bone Storms hit that enemy once per second, I'm generating an 8,000 shield every single second. But in Sarats Lair, the density is a little bit more than 5. So your barrier generation is at max at all times. It doesn't matter what hits you, and it doesn't matter what's doing anything to you. You are instantly regenerating basically 8,000 life every single second because of how that synergy is going. It's pretty insane. Now, the other thing that's going really nuts with this is this. If Lidless Wall was the engine, then OsseusGale aspect is the transmission. They have to nerf this. There's no way that this does not get nerfed. This is stupid what it's doing. Bone Storm consumes up to 8 corpses to increase its duration by up to 10 seconds. Okay, what does that mean? That means that when these Bone Storms proc on top of your enemies that you just killed, they consume the corpses on the ground to increase the duration of the Bone Storm that's around you for whatever amount of time. And the thing is that these can permeate over and over. So let's imagine you have number 1 Bone Storm, number 2 Bone Storm, number 3, number 4. Number 1 falls off, you hit another enemy, guess what? It re-permeates, and now you have 1 over here. And then 2, and then 3, and 4, and it just keeps going throughout the dungeon where you just leapfrog the Bone Storms forward, forward, forward. And they can keep consuming corpses and keep elongating your Bone Storm on your main self over and over and over again. And you can legitimately, theoretically, have an infinite Bone Storm if the density is high enough. I have had multiple runs where I've casted Bone Storm once the entire run, and it just stayed up all the way through the boss. It's a little bit of stupid, is what it is. But there's another part to this that we're not reading, the consuming the corpses part. Okay, so what's happening right now is people are running that heart. Walking near corpses automatically activates the corpse scale, and they're running Corpse Explosion on their bar. And the reason they're doing that is because they are wanting to benefit from Fueled by Death, Grim Harvest, and Flesh Eater. Okay, so the thing about this is that you're going to benefit once of these a second. So the Corpse Explosion ability is going to do that once every second. So you're going to get 6 essence once every second. Okay, the thing about OsseusGale, though, is that it doesn't consume things once at a second. It just sucks them all up at the same time. And so what that means is, let's say, theoretically, you kill 4 targets with your Bone Spear, 4 corpses drop to the ground, but you don't have this. That means you're going to get 16 essence because you have 4 essence on kill, right? But with the Lidless Wall, if you hit those enemies, spawn a Bone Storm on top of it, the Bone Storm is going to immediately consume all 4 corpses all at the same time and instantly give you 24 essence on top of the 16 that you've already gotten from your essence on kill, which means that you've restored 42 essence. But your Spear casts 25 to cost. You don't have essence issues. There's no essence issues with this build. But the other thing that's really strong about it is we've talked about essence, and we know that it's going to give us Fueled by Death. We need to talk about Flesh Eater. Okay, so with this heart, what's happening with most players, and maybe something they don't understand about the mechanics of Flesh Eater. When Flesh Eater is ticking, so it's ticking, ticking, right? As it's ticking and it's active, any corpses that you consume during it being active do not count towards the stack. So right when it hits the timer, if you think that the next bone or next corpse explosion that you're going to hit is going to be the one that procs Flesh Eater again, you are wrong. The Flesh Eater will do its full thing, and then it resets, and then it goes back to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then it sets up again, and it does it for 5 seconds. Okay, with this build in the Bone Storm, what happens is, okay, your Flesh Eater is active, it's active, it's active, it's active. As soon as it's not active and it's down, you kill a group of 5 enemies, which is super simple in Sarats Lair, and you spawn a Bone Storm. Guess what? Boom, instantly, it rehashes. You'll see it multiple times in the dungeon when I'm about to show you here. But my Flesh Eater's up, it goes down for about half a second, poof, it's right back up. It's like permanent instant uptime on Flesh Eater, which is just a 40% multiplier throughout the entire dungeon. The fact that this increases your duration to give you permanent damage reduction, permanent crit hit chance increase, permanent uptime on the barrier generation, gives you essence on kill because your corpses are going to explode, and it gives you 9% times 40% damage, which is about 150, was it not 151, 51-ish percent increase in damage. This aspect legitimately gives you 4 massive powers, and there's nothing you can really replace it with. This is like the transmission of the build. These Lidless Wall and OsseusGale are really the big 2 things that are coming together to form this stupidity. But that's essentially the mechanics of the build. From there, everything else is pretty easy, right? We're running Deathless Visage. We've got you got armor when you get hits. The hits from your Bone Storms count, so you just instantly always have this fully stacked. We talked about the barrier generation. We have critical strikes are going to give us move speed. I tried the curse one. It's just really wonky. I'm not going to go into detail about why it's so wonky, but just trust, it just feels super wonky. It doesn't feel good. I'm not a big fan of it. I still think that Wind Strikers is the best to go. For Amulet, okay, so let's talk about the offensives real quick. There are pluses and minuses to all the offensive combinations. You're not going to see too much of a damage increase. Whatever decision you decide to go, there's really not going to be that much of a damage increase. You're not going to really notice too much. Honestly, however you feel you want to do it, go for it. For me personally, I like having splintering in the amulet and then veins and serration in the weapon and ring respectively. That's just my choice. I have my reasoning for it. I'm not gonna like go into the details of the math or anything like that, but that's just my personal opinion. You can really mix any combination here, and if you're happy with it and you enjoy it, go for it. But you're not gonna notice too much of a difference, but that's just what I've chosen. For the weapon, okay, Scythe. Scythe is the way to go, okay? You can have a sword. A sword gives you crit hit damage, but it gives you 10% crit hit damage. You already have 400%. So enjoy your 2.5% damage increase, I guess. I'd much rather have the utility of Life on Kill to keep me healthy for my Imbiber and my Inspiring Leader. You can run a wand, but the lucky hit chance, once you get above 60% lucky hit chance, I don't know, you just don't really feel it. I played with it. I played with all 3 of the weapons. Scythe just feels so good. And you're going to see in an instance here where my life actually gets really low, and because I'm wearing a Scythe, that Life on Kill actually really kicks in and it saves me. So I prefer Scythe. I think Scythe is definitely the way to go, and go from there. Okay, and then for second ring, we're going to be running Aspect of Exposed Flesh. So I've tinkered with everything. I try to not run Aspect of Exposed Flesh and try to run everything. The barrier damage, you get attack speed, the Edge Masters, when you consume a corpse, you get damage to your core. I tried every damage one, and I just keep running to my X. Like, honestly, Exposed Flesh is just too good. Especially against the bosses. It just feels so good. I can't go back to anything else. Exposed Flesh is just too good. And so I keep it and I'm going with it. And then we already talked about the other ring, right? So ring, amulet, and weapon are going to be running your offensive aspects. And that's that. In the build, the build is going to blow, so you can do the skills, the Paragon, everything from there in terms of synergies. That's basically how the build's working. Hey, forgot about the heart, so let's talk about it real quick. So for the first heart, we're going to run the one where when we walk near a corpse, we're automatically going to cast a corpse skill. We're not running Corpse Explosion. We're only running Corpse Tendril, so it's only going to cast Corpse Tendril. It's just too good. It's going to give you uptime on the crit hit chance the entire time throughout the dungeon. You may not notice the damage of the crit, though, because of the fact that the tendrils aren't going to be dealing damage to the things that you want, or it'll cast it behind you, so you're not always going to get that effect. That's okay. It'll be great versus bosses or great versus certain pulls, but it's not a big thing. The fact that it's just straight up giving us 20% crit hit chance throughout the entire dungeon is great enough on its own. The other one that we're going to be running from there is going to be the Vicious Heart that gives you 80% critical strike damage. They nerfed a lot of critical strike damage in the preseason. This just gives us it right back, and the fact that we have 85% crit already just intrinsically throughout the entire dungeon, it's just too strong. It's too good. So we're going to take that. Last one that we're going to take is going to be the Great Feast, where when we drain 5 seconds, we get this 95% multiplier to our damage, which is just absolutely insane. The 5 drain isn't really as felt because you actually generate 3 essence per second, so it's only 2 essence per second that you're actually draining, and like I said, the essence regeneration in this build is insane. So the only time you'll ever even see it or notice it is when you're walking in a dead space for maybe like 10 seconds and you'll lose like 20 essence. Yay. That's the worst case scenario, so it's really not as bad as you think it is. I will say that if you decide to stay in town, it won't drain. But as soon as you walk outside, you're outside a dungeon, you're walking in a dungeon. So if you're waiting for friends or waiting in the dungeon, this will continue to drain. And I have had it where I've like sat there and just like talked with friends and it's drained me all the way to 0. So if you do go in and you decide that you're going to talk or whatever and do things, just unequip the ring and you'll generate your essence and re-equip it and you'll be fine. Okay, that's it. From here, I'm gonna show you a vid of the gameplay, essentially a showcase, if you will, of myself doing a solo 72 Sarats. It's a level 72 Sarats solo in about 3 minutes, full clear. The whole thing gets cleared on day 3. Yeah, it's pretty good, guys. So thank you for watching. If you liked it, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Have yourselves a wonderful day. OperatorOtter, out.